Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Living Beyond Limits and our service in the park. You all know that I'm Reverend Jennifer Spear, and we are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living, and I'm so happy to see your faces and your courage to come out on a cold morning and to be out here in the park in this beauty of nature. And so I'm going to begin our service today by sharing with you our mission statement. So if you know it, you can say it along with me. And if not, I just invite you to take it into your heart. And it goes like this. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, of the divine, and become a beneficial presence in the world. I love it. That's awesome. That is exactly what we are doing here, is we are awakening to our own divine nature, awakening to the truth that that infinite presence and power, that one and only life of the divine, is actually our life, and that that presence and that power is expressing itself within us and through us and as us. Because when we come to recognize that that presence, that is a presence of love and peace and power and wholeness and good without bound, when we come to recognize that that is innate to our own beingness, then we aren't as reliant on the outside world reflecting that back to us. We don't need the world to be peaceful in order to have peace. We don't need the world to be loving to us in order to be loving. Of course, that's what we prefer, but we aren't reliant on it, because we are then reliant on that which already lives within us. And as we do that, we become a beneficial presence to all of the people that we come in contact with, in all of our interactions with other people. And because we are part of the collective consciousness of humanity, it actually affects the collective whole. And as we do that, we not only participate in our own spiritual evolution, but in that collective evolution of humanity as we awaken to that divine presence. So I say thank you to every single one of you for answering the call of your own spirit to be walking this path and to be being the gift that you are in this world. Thank you for that. And so as we begin our service today, I'm going to invite our practitioner, Barbara Conant, to come up, and she's going to lead us in an evocation as we begin to evoke an awareness of the presence of spirit that is always right where we are. And she'll do a contemplative reading for us. And so I invite you just to kind of begin to settle into yourself and to allow yourself to just start slowing down and becoming still. And we're going to sing the song that will lead us into the evocation, We Are, by Denise Rosier. So I invite you just to settle in.
I invite you to join me in moving into our center of peace and light. And it is here, in the center of my being, I know the creative potential of life manifests itself in many ways and through many qualities, that I may experience the fullness of this life of God. And this is also true for everyone. This light and peace is everywhere present, and it is a perfect idea in the mind of the Creator. And it moves into this moment to express itself as living beyond limits. I know the presence of this creative mind which is in and through all things is here now as the essence of this service. And today's message fills the minds and hearts of those who are here to celebrate Spirit. And I bless Reverend Jennifer and her talk, which brings new thoughts and attitudes to expand the goodness of our life. I bless everyone here and all that life gives. And I open my mind, my heart, and my hands to serve as a beneficial presence in the world today. And so it is.
It's all closer to your mouth.
Okay, I'm sorry. You would think I would be used to this by now. My reading today is from 365 Days of Richer Living by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker. And it's from March 8th, entitled, I Speak the Truth of God. And it begins, we all wish to speak the truth. We have realized that every time we make a claim about ourselves that is different from the claim we would make about God, we are falling into the error of denying the divine presence in our experience. God is truth, and truth is God. We also are included in this divine and perfect unity. Therefore, every claim we make about God, the living Spirit, should equally be made about ourselves, because we live and move and have our being in this infinite truth or presence. To say that we are poor or sick or weak or unhappy is to deny God. God is not poor. God is not sick. God is not weak. And God is not unhappy. We must then make every endeavor in simplicity and in truth to identify our personal lives with that one life which forevermore claims, I am that I am, or I am that and this and everything else I also am. There is nothing separate from this one I am. Today I say to myself, I am one with the truth of God. I speak this truth and proclaim it to be the reality of my experience in what I call little and in what I call big. In the simplest and the most complex things, I recognize the one truth, and the truth I know frees me and keeps me free. And so it is.
Thank you, Barbara. That was beautiful. And so my talk today is entitled Like a Magnet. And I'm talking about the law of attraction and how our thinking and our beliefs and our focus create an avenue so that that infinite power and presence can express itself in our lives. How our thinking and our beliefs and our attitudes allows that good to come into our life, or it actually repels those other things that aren't like our thinking from coming into our lives. And so is there something you would like to have in your life that you don't have right now? Is there something you would like to do, or someplace you'd like to go, or something you'd like to have, or something you'd like to experience? You know, we all have things that we would like to have in our lives that we don't have at the moment. From traveling to a new destination, to remodeling your kitchen or your house, to having more harmony in your relationships, to having a new job, or greater financial abundance, or greater health, or maybe just some opportunities. Those desires for more are actually the nature of life, and they are the nature of us as human beings. Those desires that we have within ourselves are actually life's way of expressing itself in a greater and a fuller way than it has been up until that moment. It is also the way that we unfold ourselves and the way that we unfold our own potential. Those longings that we have within us for more are actually a divine urge that live within us. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes says, the divine urge within us is God's way of letting us know that we should push forward and take that which is awaiting our demand. Take that which is waiting our demand because it already exists in potential. And so as we move through our lives, we have many desires, and you might notice that as you move through your life, those desires actually change. And as we move through our lives, the things that we want change, and the things that we bring to us change. And not only do we have specific desires, we also have just the desire to feel satisfied and to feel fulfilled. And it's often in pursuing those specific things that we want that brings us that satisfaction and that fulfillment. And in addition to wanting to have those things that speak to our heart, we also have a desire in our lives to not have the things in our lives that are not fulfilling. We have a desire to not be stuck in those things that aren't fulfilling, and to not be stuck in their opposite. We don't want to be stuck in a bad relationship. You don't want to be stuck in a dead-end job that isn't using your gifts or isn't adequately compensating you. You don't want to be stuck in lack of any sort or to be stuck in dis-ease of any kind. And the good news is, you are never stuck. You're never stuck. You're never stuck because we live in a principle of infinite potential. We live in that infinite potential, and that infinite potential lives in us. That infinite potential expresses itself in and through us, in and through life, and in and through our lives. But the problem is we don't always manifest those things that we want. We don't always bring them into our lives, and I think there are 3 reasons that that doesn't happen. I think the first reason is that we think the material world, the world around us, is fixed. And we think, oh, that's just the way it is out there. The second reason is that we forget that there is a creative force that actually lives within us. That creative force actually desires to fulfill itself by expressing, and one of the ways that it expresses is through our lives. And the third reason we don't always bring into our lives the things that we want is we forget that there is a law of correspondence, that there is a law of attraction, and that law of correspondence actually responds to our thinking and to our focus and to our beliefs and to our feelings, and then it mirrors into our lives as our lives those things that we think about and believe in and focus on. And so we're going to look at those things today. And so let's look at that first one, thinking that the world is fixed, that the world is solid, that it's unmoving and unchanging, but that isn't true, because really The material world is always changing. Everything is always in flux. Everything in nature and in life, the nature that is things are always becoming and things are always falling away. Things are breaking down and new things are being born. Nothing is ever unchanging in life. Makes me think of the orange tree that I have in my backyard that is just full of blossoms right now. And it smells heavenly when you walk out there. And those blossoms are starting to kind of fall off the tree a little bit. And as they fall off, there's the tiniest little green orange that's in there. Well, I still have big oranges from last season that haven't actually come off the tree yet. But the new ones are already coming forward. And that tree drops old leaves and new leaves come forward. And it sends forward new branches all the time. That tree is always changing. That's the nature of life, and it's the nature of our lives. And so think about your life. Is your life different right now than it was 5 years ago? Is your life different than it was a year and a half ago? Is your work different now than it was 5 years ago, or is it the same? And how about your kids? Are they the same? How about your relationships or your primary relationship? Is it the same? Everything is always changing and evolving and moving and becoming and fading and something new coming forward. That's the nature of life. Nothing is ever fixed. And then that second thing that we forget, that there is a creative force that lives within us, and that is the very nature of our life. We forget that there is a power and a presence that contains within itself all potential. We forget that creativity and potential is really the very nature of life and the nature of our lives individually. And that presence of creativity, it actually endlessly and effortlessly is always unfolding itself. It is always out picturing itself in this world as form. Therefore, nothing is ever stuck. But in order to access that power, in order to access that creative force of the universe, we have to tap into it. We have to access it. It's always present. It's always filling our lives, but if we don't tap into it, we don't activate it. It's kind of like electricity. We taught a class this week and we talked about the fact that electricity has always been present, but it took humanity actually tapping into electricity, access it, harnessing it to be able to use it. It's the same thing with that creative force of the universe. We have electricity in our houses, but unless you flip on the light switch, nothing actually happens. So we are the ones that have to flip on the light switch and the ones that have to access it. And so we actually access that creative force of the universe just simply by remembering that it is present, by remembering that it is the nature of our lives, by remembering that it desires to express and unfold itself, by remembering it is within us and acts in us and through us. Because remembering that enables us to move from being stuck in what isn't working or what it is that we don't want. Instead, it moves us from there to knowing that it's present. But it requires us to access it being open. It requires us having faith and having trust that it is leading us, that it is guiding us, that it is orchestrating the good in our lives. And as we remember that, that's how we access that power so that it is active in our life, unfolding in our life. Knowing that that presence is active creates an avenue for it to unfold itself. Ernest Holmes said, "It is impossible for you to receive that which your mind refuses to accept. If you desire to receive more, you must mentally encompass it. So we mentally encompass the idea of what it is that we want, and then mentally encompass the idea that it is God's good pleasure to unfold itself as the more, and that the more already exists in potential. The universe wants you to succeed. The universe wants you to feel fulfilled. The universe wants you to feel satisfied. Because the more fully you live, the more full your life is, and the more satisfied you feel, the more it is has been given the opportunity to express. And that third reason that we don't always create in our lives the things that we want is because we forget about the law of correspondence. We forget about the law of attraction. We forget that that law responds to our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs and our focus. Ernest Holmes said the relationship between the individual and the universal mind is one of reflection. That is, what we image for ourselves, it images for us. That's what Ernest Holmes meant when he said God can only do for us what God can do through us. Our lives are a reflection of our beliefs and our attitudes and our focus, but mostly of our most deeply held beliefs. And it makes me think about and look at my relationships that I had early in my life. I don't know, most of you probably know that I came from a very dysfunctional home. And so let's just say my early relationships were quite dysfunctional. I was actually with people who weren't very good to me and people that didn't even necessarily really want to be with me, and that totally reflected my childhood home. And it wasn't until I went to therapy and did some healing work around that stuff and did some work about realizing that none of that really had to do with me, that I wasn't the cause of any of it, that I was able to develop new beliefs and a new appreciation of myself, and to treat myself with love and kindness, and to think that I actually deserved that, because that wasn't my childhood experience, but to change my beliefs so that I believe that I deserve it. Then my relationships changed. That is absolutely the law of attraction working on our beliefs, because that's what it does. And so at Centers for Spiritual Living, we have a tagline that says, change your thinking, change your life. And it really should be change your beliefs, change your life. Because that law really responds to our beliefs. That law of attraction and repulsion responds to our subconscious beliefs and our subconscious beingness. Ernest Holmes said the sum total of our thoughts, will, purpose, and belief create a tendency in this law that causes it to react to us according to the sum total of that belief. So it's responding to our beliefs. But one of the ways that we change our beliefs is by changing our focus. Because when we change our focus, it changes our thinking. And when we change our thinking, it changes our beliefs. And as you continue to think a new thought, it becomes a belief over time. For example, maybe there's a person that is constantly telling themselves, I don't have enough. And that is what their focus is on, is the not enough. The low number in the bank account, or how much they're making at work. But as that person turns that around and starts using an affirmation saying, I live in an opulent universe, that opulence is the very nature of life itself, as they tell themselves that opportunity and opulence fills my life right now, that affirmation over time becomes a belief, and they start drawing opulence to them because it's always existed, but now they're open to it. So life shows up in a different way. Or perhaps there's a person who is very invested in watching what I call the horrors of the day. That's that thing, they call the news that's on TV. And after time of continuing to watch that over and over, that person comes to believe that this world is scary. It's a scary place to live. And that people are bad. And that life isn't safe. And guess what? They create an opening for those exact things to show up in their life. Not only do they create an opening, but literally when they go out in the world, that's what they see. Because that's what they believe. That's what they show up for in life, because that is in alignment with their beliefs. And the person who affirms or does spiritual mind treatment and tells themselves that life is for me, that life wants me to succeed and life wants me to thrive, that I am constantly and effortlessly supplied with everything that I need, that then reflects into their life, and things like that show up. The perfect job, the perfect opportunity, the raise, all those things start showing up because they're open to that which has already been available, but not yet in form, but available in consciousness. And so I'd like to share a story with you. It comes from The Art of Being by Dennis Merritt Jones. Have you ever seen a sculptor work with stone? The raw hunk of rock is nothing but a rock until he decides what he wants to create. It is but a formless mass of unrealized potential until he realizes his vision, picks up the carving tools, and goes to work. Then the rock begins to take form and character that manifests the inner blueprint. The sculptor simply removes the unnecessary pieces of rock, and presto, that which began with the energy of a thought becomes transformed. Now begin to see yourself as a sculptor. Each thought you have is another chip in your unrealized potential, your future, your life. Understanding that your mind, where your beliefs are formed, is the point of origin for every thought you have, it is encouraging to know that it is not the accidental slip of your carving tool that does real damage. By this I mean that an occasional negative thought of fear, judgment, jealousy, or fill in the blank will not ruin your creation. However, the same thought repeated over and over countless times is bound to put quite an indentation in that stone. This will weaken the foundation upon which a healthy life is built. Throughout time, every spiritual master from every age and teaching has taught this same truth. It is a reality from which we cannot escape. As a man thinketh, so he is. It is done unto you as you believe. Buddha was right. Our lives are shaped by our minds. We really do become what we think. The good news is that it's never too late to begin carving out a new concept of ourselves if we don't care for the shape that our life is taking. It starts with your next thought. So sharpen your tools and go for it. If you want to manifest something in your life, begin by getting clear about what that thing is. Paint a picture of it in your mind. See what it's going to look like. See yourself in that picture. Realize how are you going to feel and feel those feelings when that thing is manifest. How is it going to feel, and how are you going to feel? And know that life delights in your fulfillment. Because that desire is life's way of unfolding itself. Water that seed you have planted of your new thing that you want to bring forward. Water that seed with your faith and with your attention, with your affirmations and your visualizations, with spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, and expect the best. And if doubts creep in about your ability to have this, or about your deservability to have it, use affirmations to counteract those beliefs that come up. Affirm their opposite. And know that when you are speaking affirmations, you aren't speaking an affirmation to make it true. You are speaking an affirmation because it is already true. It is already true in potential, in that invisible realm. Opulence is already true. Wholeness is already true. Balance and order and harmony are already true. They're already real. Is all you're doing is creating an opening so that they might come into your life in a greater way. Peace is already true. We're just making an opening for it. It's already present as the nature of life itself. And our recognition of that truth creates an opening for it. So my invitation to you is to get clear about what it is that you want. Convince yourself that it's already yours and coming into your life. Trust that it is coming into form, and hold space for it to show up. Know that you don't have to control it. You don't have to manipulate things. You just have to be in that attitude of openness and of expectancy, of gratitude, and of recognition. And as you do that, you will be absolutely living the life of your heart's desires fulfilled. And so blessings to every single one of you in living your most fulfilling, most satisfying, most thriving, and beautiful life that you can dream of. Blessings to each one of you. And so I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer. And so I recognize that omnipresence of spirit. I recognize that that infinite one is right here where I am. For that infinite one is everywhere present, filling all of time and filling all of space. It is that one whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. And it is a presence and a power and a principle of opulence. It is a presence and a power of creativity and of good, of magnificence. And it is unfolding itself as this thing we call life, all around us, everywhere we look. And it fills our lives, and it fills our consciousness. For in truth, there is only one mind. And our mind is simply the use we make of this consciousness, this mind of the universe. And so today I recognize that everything that our hearts desire are already present in principle, already present in potential. And so today we look to that source, knowing that its nature is to unfold itself. And we recognize that it is unfolding itself through us with ease and with grace and with beauty. And so we turn to it in openness and acceptance, and we make our claim upon the law. And as we do so, that good cannot help but bring itself to our lives. And so I just simply recognize the blessing that these lives are that we are living, the opulence of the universe, and how we are one with all of it. And so I release this prayer into the creative law of the universe, knowing that it is doing itself, unfolding itself, showing up as our good right now. And so in openness, in receptivity, in acceptance, in excitement, and in high anticipation of our unfolding good, we each release this prayer. And in gratitude, I invite you to say with me, and so it is. And so I believe, Barbara, do you have an affirmation for us? David, do you have an affirmation for us? David's going to come lead us in an affirmation.
So if you will say after me, today I am filled with joy. Because life is expressing itself in my life. And I now accept the good that is waiting for me. And so it is.
The good that is waiting for each of us. I love it. And so I have just a couple announcements. We will be back here again in 2 weeks. If you have been participating in Connection Spiritual Practice, we have 2 more weeks of class, so we won't be back until a few weeks from now, until after the class is over. Ray invites you to join our YouTube channel. It's a one-click to all of our videos. We have Ministry of Prayer, so if you would like to be supported in prayer, you can let Barbara Conant know your prayer request, and she will put it out to the ministers and practitioners. And just to know that you are loved, that you are in our thoughts and in our hearts, even when we're not together, and how much I appreciate and love every single one of you. So know that, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Blessings to you.